All right. Good afternoon. My name is Chevelle Savage, and this is Who's in the Neighborhood, edition number 3. And we are here with Laquana Shepherd. And I'm just going to jump in and allow you to go ahead and just tell us a little bit about who you are, Laquana.
Hi, my name is Laquana Shepherd, and I am a social worker and independent business owner for Alter Wellness Services LLC. I provide therapeutic coaching and wellness services to include holistic practices like meditation, affirmation work, and yoga. Um, so that's a little bit about me. I live in New London. Happy to be born in New London. I was raised in Waterford and moved back to New London probably about 7 years ago. So my mother relocated to New London, and so we moved back to New London. Then when I got out of college, and so that's how I found myself back here. And ever since then, I've been working as a social worker in different areas. In school social work, I'm certified school social work, so I worked there for 2 years. I worked in higher education as a social integration specialist right here in Mitchell College for about 2.5 years. And then now I've just been working independently. So
Okay.
a little bit about
You know,
me.
there are not a lot of Black yoga instructors, and so you say you do yoga. What made you like move into that path? Like, does that help you in healing and when you're working with other folks? Because you say you do coaching as well.
Yeah, so yoga ended up being like a personal practice for me that I started last year. And because I just fell in love with it, I started creating Black only spaces for yoga because I felt like yoga wasn't representing Blackness enough. So it was one of those things where I wanted to create Black only spaces. Before COVID, we were doing it, in different spaces in New London. And so it ended up just being my own personal practice that I wanted to share with people that I worked with. Um, because I was just able to feel the benefits of the healing that was around yoga and body movement and body healing. So I wanted to share that as a practice with people that I come in contact with.
Awesome, awesome. And you're right. There are not a lot of Black folks into yoga, not that I have seen. I know at one point in time when I was in Virginia, I was taking a curvy yoga class because there are also not a lot of places where I see body representation that looks like mine in yoga spaces. I normally see very small, petite humans or humans that are much smaller than me. And so I always struggle with, I want to take yoga. I want to build up my core. I want to build up my strength and my stability. But I wonder, are the people who are doing the instruction, are they going to be able to modify the poses? And even if they say all body types and sizes are welcome, will I feel funny or will I feel embarrassed to ask them to modify a body type, to modify a pose for my body type if they're not modifying it for anybody else? So like, how does that come up for you when you're dealing with like the Black only spaces that you create for yoga?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that was what kept me away from yoga for many years because it was always on like a bucket list every year, like become like, get into yoga, do yoga. But I've always been I consider myself a full figured woman, a Black woman who, has body. And whenever I would go to yoga classes, it would be white, slender women. And then there wasn't, I feel like representation matters. And so in order for people to know that it's something that they can do, they have to see somebody who looks like them doing it, right? And so, I didn't let it stop me because I continued. That's how I got started. Was it was a white only space, and I was doing my yoga, coming to my hot yoga, and I was, but the women were so helpful. They leaned in and they saw like, me trying to be vulnerable and try something new, and they would give me different things to try, like using the bands to stretch my legs higher when if I couldn't get it that way, or to give me modified poses and postures to try if they were doing something that was out of my element. So I think, giving people the option for alternative postures and going around and adjusting people, if they're comfortable with hands-on, I think that it was knowing your options, knowing you can use the block if you can't, if you can't sit on your bottom, or if you can't sit in a position long enough, you need something to sit on or lean into. So I've always I use the blocks, I use the bands whenever I can't get my body to move a certain way that maybe the pose is requiring me to. So I think knowing your options. has always helped
Yeah.
me, knowing what I can use, right, to get me into a position that might be a little
Yeah.
harder for me. Yeah.
Exactly. Trying to set those boundaries for yourself, and also being kind to yourself that if you're not able to get into that particular pose, that you can set that as a goal to get there. So that's great. I love that you have created yoga spaces for Black and brown folks, because I think it is definitely one of the things that is common, and it can help with so many things, right? When it comes to the healing component. Um, you had mentioned that you lived in New London and you were born in New London. And so, and that you left to go to school and then you came back. So tell me a little bit about, why you decided to start Alter Inc. And does it stand for anything?
Yeah, altering trauma through empowerment and recovery. And so I started Alter um, just by way of, I've always wanted to help people, right? And that's why I become a social worker. I've always wanted to be able to help people know that they can live a life beyond suffering, right? And so my goal with Alter really came as, it was like a need. Like most Black businesses, I feel like, especially Black women, we start something because we see a need and we want to be able to help our community. And it was a little selfish too, because it was something I also needed. Like I had went through my own experiences, and I was like, man, I had found practices, healing practices, things that I really helped me, right? Helped me become better. And I felt like, man, I wish other people knew that this was available to them, to help them with their own healing journeys. So then it was just something that came innately. I was like, one day I was like, I'm going to do a healing through your journey workshop. And I started planning it, and it just came viscerally. I started planning it, and people wanted to be a part of it. We had an artist come that day. And from then it just took off. That was in July of 2019. And from then I created a Black only yoga space in culture downtown New London. Um, and so it just kind of went from there. I started doing meditation work and writing my own meditations for people. And so it just started from a need. I saw a need and I wanted to bring it to people. And since then it's taken its own form.
I love the fact that you brought up that it came out of a need, because as Black women, we will create a resource if we don't have one, right?
Yep.
I think that's part of our Black girl magic, honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about, like, what has been your involvement with outCT, like both past and present. Like, tell me a little bit about your interaction. I remember seeing you at a Pride event.
Yeah.
But like, tell me what you know about outCT. Do you think it's an important organization?
Absolutely. I went to a training. I used to work for United Community and Family Services. That was my first ever job when I came back from school. And I went to a training that was out of Norwich. The outCT was on the training. So that was my first exposure to the training, to outCT. And then, like you were mentioning before, I saw you at this event, a Pride event, and that was my second exposure to it, where I was there representing the Southeastern Connecticut Naturalistas, and being able to provide and let people know about services available about hair and natural hair care. And I saw how beautifully that event was coordinated, and to be able to give the community something that they know that they can lean into and be able to have services available through. So I love that outCT has been able to tap into a really unique realm of service and be able to give people community, and the happiness that I see that the youth have a place that they can go, right? And they know that they can go there, they know that they're accepted there, that it's all inclusive, safe, and judgment free. So I follow outCT. I love the comments and the remarks that are being made around the Black Lives Matter movement, and to know that they care. So that's my exposure to outCT.
Okay. So you bring up Black Lives Matter, and I just wanted to check in with you, because I've been noticing that we've had a lot of Black Lives Matter protests. We had one in New London, and then there has been one in Old Saybrook, and there has been one in like all of the different little areas in Connecticut, in the different little cities or towns and all of that. But I've noticed that it
Yeah.
has not been, the queer and trans voices have not always been centered. Now, I do know that they were centered, I think, probably with the Hearing Youth Voices protests, simply because I know that they center trans and youth who are Black and brown, and
Yes.
non-binary youth who are Black and brown, and that it is a organization specifically for Black and brown youth. But what are your thoughts around that? Being a social worker and knowing that the Black Lives Matter movement was started by three people, two of them who identified as queer, that just not seeing that voice in some of the other protests or some of the other forums around healing, for mental health folks, mental health forums for folks who are led by Black and brown people, that I haven't seen a lot of queer and trans identities being celebrated, or being not even celebrated, honored or identified. What are your thoughts around that?
It doesn't sit well with me, to be honest. It doesn't sit well with me because I think in order for us as a community, and when I say us, I mean Black folks, we have to understand that in order for us to be able to really deal with the racism and discrimination and the segregation that is being amplified in the nation currently, we have to unify, and we have to really understand the intersectionality that comes with Black lives, right? And we can't just say Black Lives Matter and not call attention to the attack on Black trans lives. We can't just gloss over that, and I think that we've seen the way that people all around the world have responded to the assassination or the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, but I have not seen the same type of attention to the Tony McDades and other trans. The young woman that was attacked in Philadelphia, and so I don't see the same energy around that, and it does not sit well with me. And I think that you know we have a long way to go as a community around how we deal with the LGBTQ community. We have a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for saying that. I think you were, aren't you planning something to kind of like a healing space to kind of bring in those voices of folks that perhaps had not been centered? Could you talk a little bit about that and when that is, so
Yeah.
that folks will know how to get there?
Yeah. So I'm co-facilitating an event called Rage and Regulate, a healing space for Black and brown folks and queer folks, co-facilitating it with Cindy Lees, who's out of London. And yeah, what I've noticed is just a lot of the forums and the discussions that were happening, there was nothing on the agenda of Black trans lives and what's happening with the attack on that culture. And so it just, like I said before, was not sitting well. So I was like, in discussion with other professionals and practitioners in the area that have specialties and sexuality and understanding that. Most of us felt like it was important to create the space. And so that's happening on Wednesday, June 24th at 7 p.m. And so you can register through Eventbrite. And when you register, if you look up Rage and Regulate, a healing space, it should come up as soon as you put Rage and Regulate, a healing space. It's the only one there. And we put specifically New London, Connecticut. If you register there, it's free, and then you get a Zoom link sent to you so that you can have access to the discussion. And we do have an agenda, but it is going to be just the open discussion and a safe space for people to just not have to save space and talk about, what they're feeling, right? And then also we're going to center joy and center healing as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to co-facilitating that space.
I am excited for that. I wish I would be able to attend, but I have an outCT event on that same night.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Yes.
but definitely, oh my goodness, that sounds awesome. And definitely, you're right, it's needed. It's needed. So I'm glad that you and a fellow healer are creating a space for folks to be able to come and just be, right, and be able to and heal and share. And I love that you said, yeah, you're gonna also center joy, because with so much going on in the country today around the Black and brown bodies, centering joy sometimes is the hardest thing, but it also is an act of resilience and an act of political warfare, honey, because it is all about self-care.
I couldn't
Sometimes
agree
you
more.
just got to center joy, because if you don't, mm-mm. I will have a lot more people in my caseload if you
Yeah,
didn't.
exactly. I always say they can't steal your joy. They can't steal your joy.
They cannot. They cannot. They cannot. So I want to ask you, what professional adjustments have you had to make with COVID-19? I know that you say you're a coach, and you also do therapy for another organization for, I think, Little Humans,
Yeah.
that you support. But what adjustments have you had to make with COVID-19? Because it is a lot.
Yeah. You know what? I appreciate you asking me that. I think that the biggest thing has been getting used to seeing people online, being able to, because, there's a certain, especially because I serve dual roles, so I work with little people. And typically I would work in their home or work in their school setting, and you work on the floor with playing. And so trying to generate the same energy that you would in person and bring it online is a lot different. And it takes some planning, and it takes understanding the attention spans are going to be different. Right. But that even translates into my other work with adults on coaching and personal life coaching, and being able to realize that, yes, there's tasks at hand, there's goals that they want to achieve. But with all that's happening in the world with COVID, um, and they have to, sorry,
This is real life.
this is
This is
real
real
life.
life,
Stay at
folks.
home. Sorry about that. Yeah, my son, my coworker.
Your coworker.
My that that they may not be as motivated to get those
Hmm.
things done. They're dealing with a lot of different stressors, and it's coming more full force. Nobody could have planned for this time. I keep telling people that, like, no one could have planned for this, so there's
Hmm.
a sense of just like we're doing like triaging, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're trying to figure out what's the best strategies that you can use during this time to take care of yourself. It's
Absolutely.
more about
Absolutely.
self-care than it is about really goal attainment, if that makes sense. And
Hmm.
making room for the really heavy feelings, I think, has also been a lot of work too.
Yeah. Definitely making room for the heavy feelings, and then also self-care is so important around this, because this definitely is a national pandemic and no one has could have ever thought. He 96 days,
Yeah,
96 days this has been going on. 96 days that happened when I travel outside of my house having to wear a mask. 96 days am I now having to see all my clients via Zoom. So all of these things, and that does something to a person. I didn't realize how much of an extrovert I was, and how much I really got energy from seeing the people that allow me to support them in their wellness journey in person.
yeah,
Right. I mean, of course, I do teletherapy because I do have clients that I see in Virginia, but just having to see everybody um, and via Zoom and electronically, because Zoom fatigue is real.
yeah.
And it's a lot more energy that you have to put into it and all of that. So what are you doing? Heard you mention about self-care. So what are you doing? What are some things that some of our viewers can do to kind of engage in self-care if they're having to navigate and do Zoom meetings and things of that nature?
Yeah, that's great. I think for me, if I know I'm gonna have a long day where I'm gonna be at the computer for many different reasons, serving in many different capacities, then I start my day with either a walk or time on the beach. Sometimes I hit the beach at 8 o'clock and I go for a swim, and I just want to feel my feet in the sand and the warmth of the sun, because I know I'm going to be inside behind a computer. So, or I take a walk at local parks or just around the neighborhood. Um, and I do something that just makes me feel good, whether it's reading 5 pages of a book in the morning, or if I start the morning with my meditation for 5 to 7 minutes. And sometimes when I take my walk, I do a walking meditation that plays in my headphones. Um,
Mm,
and then I
okay.
start my day. Yeah, I also start my day at times with a motivational podcast. Like I'll play it on Alexa when I'm showering in the morning, just something that I can listen to that kind of gets my energy going.
Mhm.
So those are little things that I do. I might prepare my meals as well. So I know that if I'm gonna have
Mhm,
to be here, then I can just like, well, eat like that, and drink water.
mhm.
Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate.
Yes, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Thank you. Those are all wonderful tips, and I know that our viewers are going to appreciate them and incorporate those because those are all simple things that we all can do and we have access to,
Yeah,
right? Um,
yeah.
so, what can you tell our viewers how to find you?
Mhm.
Okay, how to access your services, and what exciting things do you have on the horizons for our viewers to be able to participate in?
Yeah, sure. So you can follow me on Instagram or at Alter Therapy. You can follow me at Facebook at Alter Therapy and Wellness Services. Um, Also, in the future, I'll be doing the event, like I said, on Wednesday called Rage and Regulate. I'm also working with a media company on making an 8-part meditation series that will be available on a YouTube channel. And I'm going to be working on another Understanding Anti-Racism forum happening out of Niantic. That's going to be virtual as well. So all those things are usually posted on my social media pages, so you don't have to look too far. If you just go on there, you'll see my flyers and my information there.
Well, thank you. Listen, I have really enjoyed our chat. Y'all heard what she said. Now, this is a local healer right
Yeah,
here. She is supporting the children of the LGBTQ community and is actually has created a forum because she saw that just like we want included in some of those spaces, healing spaces. So we appreciate you.
thank you so
Um,
much. We appreciate
and
you.
what I'm going and so I'm going to end here
Yeah.
and her coworker.
Okay. Well,
I'm going to end, I'm going to end here. And one thing I
my coworker. Sorry, he wants chips.
listen, listen, COVID-19 workspaces, okay, y'all? This is real
Get
talk. All right.
into it.
Kwana, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank
your
you so much
time
for
and your
taking the
energy.
time to share with us. I really appreciate it. Alta Inc., can you give us your information one more time?
Absolutely. Alter Therapy at Instagram and Alter Therapy and Wellness Services on Facebook. Go ahead and follow me there. And if you're interested in connecting, feel free to email me at helloaltertherapy@gmail.com.
Awesome.
All right.
See you and your coworker later.
Thank you so much. Thank you.